All right. Alan, how's everything going today?
Everything's going great, Lois. Thank you.
Good, good. We've had a lot of updates. We've had a lot of good luncheons, good feedback from those investor luncheons, and I think from that we've had a lot of people request this webinar. So we went ahead and created it for those who have people throughout the U.S. and some, I think, even throughout the world that have requested to join the webinar today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As mentioned in our emails and messages to everyone, our focus today is the 10 steps to hemp success. This is focused on the investor and investment opportunity. We're definitely going to be going into details about what the 3 problems that Gravitas is solving in the hemp industry, and along with the investment opportunity. So here today with us, we have Alan and Jason. They're going to be our hosts today. And first up is Mr. Alan Witters.
Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us today on the webinar. I've got up on our screen basically just a little bit of background on myself. I've done M&A across 50 deals, done 4 IPOs, helped found a lot of startup companies, raised a little over $3 billion in capital, and managed really large project budgets up into the multi-billion-dollar range. We also have on the line with us Jason Gabauer, and he's got 20 years of financial experience with various family offices, big companies like General Electric, and he's joined us just as this January. So what we're going to learn today in this presentation is how we're solving 3 of the biggest problems that are facing the hemp industry, how you can invest in the new hemp economy while minimizing your risks, and how you can buy our 12% convertible bonds where the interest is paid annually, and it has a really cool conversion of 2 times face value, which delivers a 24% IRR over 5 years. Why is this important to you now? Well, the hemp industry is a brand new industry in the United States. It's in its infancy stages. It is basically, the hemp industry in America has really no proven business success or track record, and there's a whole green rush thing going on. And when we looked at it, the cannabis industry ran right into basically overgrowing and under processing capabilities, and we saw a lot of this happening. And then in the industrial hemp industry, which is actually much larger than the recreational and medical cannabis businesses, we see a displacement play coming from the hemp products. So what is our hemp economy platform all about? It benefits the entire value chain. We create standardized growing of hemp. We do industrial whole plant processing with 0 waste, and we monetize basically every component of the plant, a lot more than just CBD oil that you hear about in all the news today. We'll also show you how your investment in our hemp bond will provide you the 12% and a lot of growth opportunities. So what is it about hemp and the hemp industry? It's a lot more than the CBD things, as I mentioned earlier. The market is expected to grow from 4.6 billion in 2019 to 26 billion by 2025, a 34% compound annual growth rate. There are 7 major industries that hemp is impacting with new products and displacing old raw materials: functional foods, biodiesel, plastics, paper, constructions, textiles, and packaging. And we believe that it can make a really positive benefit to the planet and what's going on in the USA also. We think we're also at the right place at the right time. The hemp economy, and this slide here gives you a breakout of where things are focused. And in the US, the market was in 2017, you can see this highlighted, is was about $820 million with these kinds of breakouts. Again, we're focused on the whole plant. So whenever we process a hemp plant, it's going into 4 or 5 of these categories. And it's not just a single use product. Our core competencies, tissue cloning at scale, where we actually take the plants and replicate them and multiply them into millions and millions and millions of small seedlings. Biomass processing at scale, we start at about 1 ton per hour and scale up from there. And if you have known anything about the industry, this has been the bottleneck for all of the industry in cannabis is processing. We feel it's highly important to know what's going on in the industry. And so we have built a information handling and workflow platform that participants participate in, and it helps in the standardization, quality, and the scaling. And then a lot of the people that start going out and growing hemp, they forget about the rest of the value chain and how they're going to monetize what they're growing. And so we actually have focused also on not only the supply side of the growers, the middle, which is the processing and the tissue cloning and things like that, but we've also focused on the demand side. Where are you going to sell all these products? And we've been working on take or pay agreements for fiber, for plastics, food, oils, things like that. Through our analysis last year, we found out over on the supply side that there's 3 levels of people wanting to get into the farming and growing business. They're the small farmers, and all they want to do is farm. And we've developed a program for them that gives them actually a paycheck and benefits, and we pay them to farm our crops. We have the independent large hemp cannabis companies and growing groups, and they basically have outstripped their processing capacity with their test growing and are now looking for stuff they can use for production growing. And so here we actually have structured something that looks like the Halliburton Schlumberger model, where we rent our processors out, we fully staff them and it's based on a service approach. And we go out and process people's hemp that way, very similar to how those 2 oil companies work in the oil fields. And then we have strategic partner groups. And this basically starts directing everything we've got towards large landowners and people that want to do strategic businesses with us, either on the supply side, demand side, or across the whole ecosystem. And this has all been put together to basically go from farm to market and standardize the industry, eliminate a lot of unnecessary middlemen that are out there. You hear a lot about brokers and a lot of fraud. We're here to get rid of that. This is a farmer-driven hemp economy. It starts at the farmer, and you know, we believe that we can help reduce the boom-bust cycle that farmers have with their current crops that are out there. We developed something called the 10 Steps to Hemp Success, and this is where people can subscribe. We do planning and financing, we do compliance work, we do the risk management, our farmers do the planting and the maintenance of the crops and the harvesting, and we help handle the logistics and the processing, and then we ultimately get it to the marketplace. These 10 steps have to be done. They're very important, and there are complex items in each of these steps that the typical farmer is not used to for compliance and regulatory aspects of the hemp industry. We put ourselves right in the middle as the nexus to the industry. We believe that we then can start controlling a few choke points like the plants and processing and refining, be between the farming and the market, and standardize and help make sure that compliance and testing is done correctly. To give you an idea, the step 1 in the 10-step program is really straightforward. A small farmer can contract 1 acre or 500 acres with us. We do a annual crop plan with the farmers, and we split that value of that crop plan in half. We pay basically 50% of the payment of that amount of money we've agreed that he's going to grow for us. We pay that in 26 paychecks with health care and benefits. And then after we harvest and we process and we sell, the other half of the payment is paid, and it is market adjusted accordingly. For every 50 acres, that basically represents $4.5 million in future revenue. It employs farmers to grow, it costs us roughly $600,000 in payments to the farmers to grow on that 50 acres over a 3-year period. It's good for the farmers, it provides them security, and it gives us a fixed cost of farming the crop. A lot of things that farmers aren't used to doing are things like business plans, crop planting, all the testing, all the product marketing planning, all those kinds of things. We handle all of that. We handle the compliance, which is complex because you're doing testing on 1-acre plots in 5 spots, and you're doing that 2 to 3 times during the harvest season or during the growing season. You have to have growing permits, you have to demark your plots, you have to have test filings, harvest filings, and processing permits, food safety permits, things like that. We handle all of that, and we've simplified the model by being the crop owner, so there's only basically 1 permit needed pulled with lots of different plots that are defined under our permit. We also help with the hot crop mitigation. We help in the risks areas. We look at weather and crop risks, and we also insure those. So our revenue is insured. Because we're going across so many acres of land, we look like a large risk pool, which reduces our cost for insurance and also reduces the risk. The farmer, he is responsible to work the land. They're responsible for the equipment, the fuel, and it goes into the equipment, irrigation, and application according to the agricultural plan we've all signed off with them, or contracted them under. They're also responsible for the crop maintenance, which means weeding, if there's weeding required, fertilizing. We do supply the fertilizer according to our prescriptions. And again, they're responsible for working the land and the equipment around it and the labor around that. Harvesting, the same thing. We help them with logistics. Remediation of fields is their responsibility, again, working the land. And we've been working with a couple of large farm equipment vendors like John Deere and Kloss and a few others, where we can get a fleet of specialized hemp harvesting equipment made available to the farmers. Logistics, we help with scheduling, picking up of the bags and the bales, hoppers in some cases, and we also work on delivering seedlings, doing all the test logistics and the harvest work, and also providing certain levels of field security and product security that the farmers normally would not be able to apply. Processing, and this is one of the proprietary areas that our core competencies. We can do rough and fine processing. The fine processing is at the molecular level. We can produce microfibers, stringy fibers, woody fibers, seeds, molecular fiber, hemp water or juice, and what we call is an extrication liquor, which is the oils that come out of the plant. Because our process is non-solvent based, we get all of the molecules, and we're not changing anything. Then we focus on the marketplace. How do you sell this stuff? Once you produce it, you got to be able to sell it. And so we look at all the different avenues of selling and what's going to provide the best economic value to the company. A little bit of a technical overview of the current systems out there. To give you an idea, on 120 acres, there's 238,000 pounds of hemp. If you can go out and buy an ethanol-based system today, it'll do about 700 pounds a day. It'll take you 340 days to get through that 120 acres of hemp. This is where people are spending millions, tens of millions of dollars on a bunch of small systems that really don't scale. CO2 is the same thing, a couple of different size systems here. Our processing came out of the biofuels industry, and basically we can do the same amount of processing in 5 days. We're about 75% more efficient on capital, it would cost you $21 million in CO2 systems to do the same that one of our systems can do for $6 million. We are zero waste compared to 98% waste from the CO2 solvent systems. We're an organic process, and you don't have to dry your biomass, which is an additional 15 to 30% input cost. We also can handle some really difficult situations. In our processing, we can take the hemp bales and stalks in through a rough line, and it comes out with large types of items like microfibers, rough stringy fibers, rough woody fibers, seeds, and extractable biomass that wasn't picked off the tops already. Those can go into downstream processes or sold in, as a commodity. The hemp flowers go into our fine line, which is a molecular processing system, and we come out with molecular fiber, hemp water juice, and an extrication liquor. What's really interesting about this molecular fiber is it is 99% of the way to what is called cellulosic nanocrystals, which can be used in the FDA just approved 4% usage of this for food fillers. It also is used in plastics for things like cellophane and biodegradable plastics. For every acre and every ton that comes off, around 40 to 60% of the plant is cellulosic fiber. We have hemp water, and we have an extrication liquor, which is where the high value oils, CBD, CBG, CBN oils, and things like that are. This is a picture of some of the equipment. It's food and pharma grade. And part of the platform is an application that tracks your plots, the schedule, the processing, and the revenue that comes through. And so we track a lot of data, and this is important because we have to file testing with the state and outputs with the state, things like that. There's a lot of strategic partners that we've organized, and the people that participate in the platform, these are the different audiences that use our software. Basically, farmers are handling as strategic partners. The government is looking at test data, and then the market data is in the platform also. Strategic partners include insurance companies, technology companies, testing, equipment partners, and logistics. These are all the different people involved with us. And if we want to look at the numbers, we basically make revenue 3 or 4 ways. We have acreage commitments that guarantee the supply side. Today we have commitments of over 55,000 acres, which is over a 3-year period of time, represents a little over $2 billion in potential reserves, revenue reserves. We look at that as an in-ground type of reserve that like the oil companies would, but it's a biomass reserve that we'll be putting on our balance sheets. We do cloning. We make our facility in Fort Myers is being designed to produce 60 million cloned plants per year, of which we'll use around 20 million of those internally and sell the others at $3 to $7 a piece. The demand side contracts on the supply side, we currently are in negotiations on plastics, on nanocellulosic crystals to be sold. We're food fibers, CBD oil to both nutraceutical companies and also pet food companies. Now, our software platform tracks all those 10 steps and also starts giving us clear indicators on the economics of where we ought to be selling things ahead of time and what contracts are going to be taking up the supply. We've done 2 revenue models currently. One is our low model that's based on 1,000 acres, growing to about 3,000, 4,000 acres. And it's really a conservative model. It has us paying for our seedlings at street prices, not growing our own seedlings. It also has none of the other revenue centers other than the CBD oil. We don't reflect any of the CNC, the nanocellulosic revenues in these. We're trying to be very conservative. And if on our low case, we will do about 195 million a year by year 5. In our high case, this is about a $600 million a year company. Again, very conservative. We are decreasing the market prices in all these models, and we also are amortizing 100% of our equipment. We're paying for the seedlings here. We expect that our actual operating model will be improved upon these numbers. Some key level milestones that we've achieved. We signed up in December, 4,000 acres. Earlier in January, we've signed an MOU on 10,000, 25,000, and 50,000 acres. We have about $25 million of the bonds up in place. I think we have around $25 million in commitments right now. We're working on the back half of the bonds, and we've got several parties interested in those. We signed an LOI on our facility in Fort Myers on the lease there. We've entered strategic discussions with John Deere, where they're looking at taking our 10 Steps for Hemp program and offering that to all of their farmers that want to get into hemp, along with a specialized hemp processing line that would be offered to everybody in the 10-step program, where they can rent on a daily basis the specialized hemp equipment and not have to put out $1 million per machine type of thing. Almost the Uber model for harvesting and combines. We've also finished our cloning design. The actual investment is a 12% 5-year convertible bond. The coupon is paid annually. There's a conversion at 2 times face value. There's a $25,000 unit size. There are 2,000 units being placed. There's around 1,100 units available, maybe around 1,000 actually, I think now. And we're raising a total of $50 million at this point. So some of the objections that we have heard and seen is, most people don't know much about the hemp industry. We spent the last year and a half studying it and studying the value chain and who buys hemp, how is it created, all these things, plus the processing and the whole value chain and the workflow processes we're specialists in at this point. It's a brand new industry. Yes, it is. But again, just like the internet and just like the telecoms and just like the computer stuff out there, there is huge rewards to get into this thing. And as we are defining and displacing existing markets are out there with these products. We're pre-revenue. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we're pending getting our permits in Florida to actually start operations. We've looked at both sides of the supply chain, and with the commitment on 4,000 acres, that basically represents $80 to $140 million in committed growing revenue. And with our buy side, we're working on the commitments of about take and pay agreements for hundreds of thousands of tons of materials with the various buyers that are be putting that into their final products. We received a commitment on another basically 50,000 acres, and we have not yet estimated the revenue that will be available off of that. Is this for you? Well, if you want to be part of the historical hemp industry, minimize your risks and exposures. If you're willing to invest for 5 years, this is the type of thing that you're looking for. And we can start going into questions and answers now. If anybody's got questions, here's where you would go next to access our private placement memorandum. And once your access is approved, you can go in and see all of our information. The memorandum is 160 pages long, so it's a good document to go to sleep by. Luis?
Thank you very much, Alan. Very, very informative. We definitely have a few questions that have come up from some of our attendees.
Right.
We have Dana. Dana's asking, can you do me a favor, Alan? Can you go back, I think it's 2 pages.
Yeah, so I see the question. What's really interesting is that our process does not require drying or trimming as a bottleneck. We take the plant in green. Let me see here, right here, probably. I don't know if I've got a picture of the actual processor here. I can unhide it. Hang on a minute, everybody. So we can take any kind of input, the tops, the buds, the whole plant, it could be chopped up, it could be dried, green, wet, it could be the root balls and stalks, and there's no drying required whatsoever. The reason that you have to dry the product, really there's only one reason you have to dry it, and that is if you're going to smoke it. Otherwise, the only reason you dry it is that any wet or green plants actually disable the CO2 or the ethanol hexane processes, solvent-based processes. Anything over about 15 or 20% moisture actually disables the extraction process. Our process is primarily all mechanical. We homogenize the whole plant, expose all the compounds, and we don't lose any compounds. We have all the high-level aromatics, terpenes, and things that are modified sometimes through those other systems. And so that's basically what we do. And would we be willing to work, in California with farmers? Absolutely. We are working with some growers there already.
Excellent. And we have another question. They wanted to know, what are the bedrock assumptions that the investment relies upon?
What are the bedrock assumptions that the investment relies upon? It relies on the ability to find the supply side growers. It relies on the throughputs and capital equipment costs of the processors and the operating OPEX costs that we have on those. And it also relies on the supply side, buy side selling to generate buy side revenues. We also do get supply side revenues through the seedlings and clones that we manufacture. And then we also are monetizing through our marketplace on the platform.
Excellent. So you're not just counting on one revenue stream. You're really looking at multiple streams, and depending on what's happening and how to really help the marketplace standardize what's going on and what can be extracted from the hemp plant.
Well, and that's really true, Luis, because this is not a single purpose product like a tomato or a potato or something like that. There are 1,100 compounds that come out of the hemp plant. There are at least 15 product buckets that we look at, and then from there it goes into thousands of products and thousands of different things that are done downstream. It's really similar to the oil industry. We have a comparative chart on one of our websites that shows petroleum products, and then almost an equivalent chart with actually a few more products that can be created out of hemp, because the hemp fibers, it's hard to get fiber out of petroleum. So the hemp plant actually can do more products than petroleum.
That's great. It's really good. Actually, we have another question from Shane. Are there any regulatory hurdles that would slow this down? Anything external to the investment that might prevent this from happening quicker?
At this point, we don't see any regulatory hurdles. We actually have addressed all of those. We've gotten basically the green lights from the states we're working with and the feds we're working with. We are also working on extended green lighting, basically, where we can do THC remediation, be certified to handle hot crops, and a few other things like that. We actually embrace regulatory and compliance type things, and we have targeted all of our stuff to be food grade, pharma grade, so that we can pass all the GMP, FDA, ISO standards and provide. All of our clients are looking for high quality, consistent supply, which is really hard to get from a bunch of small farmers and small processors. And so we're truly focused at industrial level stuff, industrial scale, and industrial repeatability, compliance, and regulatory environments.
Very good, very good. Okay, we have another one from RB. How many Ultra Series processors do you currently have operational? Do you have a registered patent on the technology?
We built several of these processors 15 years ago for the biofuels industry, where we're extracting algae and oil from pine trees and things like that. We're waiting for the state of Florida to issue our processing permits, of which we will be building the first processor here in Florida. It's more of an assembly process for us. All the equipment is equipment that's been used out there. What is proprietary is our software that runs it and the processes that we use the equipment and the recipes, basically. We will not patent it. It'll be handled as a trade secret. And we look at this like I said, with the Schlumberger model or the Halliburton model. We actually staff the machines. We don't let people really get too near them and, you know, start reverse engineering things.
Yeah, and I think to take that one further, Luis, this is Jason, to take that sort of one step further and how it pulls into regulation when Alan spoke about waiting for the state on processing, keeping in mind that there's multiple states where processing we're already good to go. And we're receiving, we're receiving orders from those states where our processors, which are modular and can be transported, are ready to start driving revenue in the near term. So we're not just held up, if there is any delay at the state level, which we're not expecting to see, but that will not stop the triggering of revenue for the business from the investor's perspective.
Excellent. We have a question as well from Dana. With the THC level only legal at 0.03%, can you go into what you mean by THC remediation?
Yeah, we have been working with the state of Florida and DEA and a couple other groups on being able to, we have some technology we've been working on that's called a spectralizer that can isolate and break down the whole extrication liquor thing that we put out that has about 650 molecules. We're working on isolating those almost down to the single molecule level, where we can actually pull out the THCs and even separate, fractionalize all of the oils and all the components there, where we can concentrate the THC, take a crop in, and the proper place to handle all the THC is when you concentrate it into an oil, because it's manageable. And that kind of remediation we know is going to be required when recreational things are approved across the country. People are going to want to know that there are 0 THC products, oils and things, and then THC out there. Now, we're not going into the recreational and medical cannabis business, but we will remediate the THC and sell it as a pharmacological product to pharmacy companies or pharma companies that are using THC in roughly 20 to 30 different drugs today.
Okay, very good. If anyone, if you have any other questions, you can click on the Q&A down at the bottom of your Zoom application. And I think I see one, couple more coming in. From Jeff, are you debt-free? Are you privately owned? Future IPO? How many current locations are operational? And then what type of partnerships are available for landowners growing?
Okay. So we are bank debt-free. We are, the bonds will look as debt on our balance sheet. We're privately owned. We'll make a decision 5 years out with our bondholders that are converting, whether we want to do an IPO or a private equity exit, or just want to, keep the company for dividends. We are right now bringing up the first location in Fort Myers in a 155,000 square foot warehouse up there. And the partnerships that are available for landowners that are growing, we have basically 3 levels. If I go back to our 3-level programs, let me do that real quick. Excuse me, everybody. We have a program for small farmers, and this is one where we hire the farmer to grow our products, and you could have 1 acre, 10 acres, up to maybe 400 or 500 acres. and we pay you $4,000 an acre for the first harvest, $3,000 an acre after for second and third harvest if you're in an area that can do multiple harvests. And we give you security, a 3-year contract, those types of things. Our level 2 stuff is where we work out a partnership where we bring in processing capabilities, maybe cloning capabilities, things like that that are specialized. And it looks similar to like a MRI medical device leasing model or a Schlumberger Halliburton model, where we come in, we charge you a rental fee per month, and we also take a processing fee, typically around 20% of the throughput goes through. And we actually staff that and man it and run it 24/7 processing. We also have strategic level partners where they're coming in with typically an investment of $5 million or more. And then we basically come in and bring processors in, take our 10-step program and apply whatever components of that make sense. And then we split the profits from the outputs with those types of partners.
Excellent. And since we're kind of still on the topic of THC and the farming and growing, we have a question. A hot crop won't be allowed to be harvested on CBD hemp.
What was that?
They're asking, a hot crop won't be allowed to be harvested on CBD hemp?
Yeah, so we see 2 different methods of growing that'll be pretty well developed within the next 2 years. Indoor growing for extremely high value oil products and products that have to have extreme quality. And that'll all be done indoors hydroponically pretty much. We are standing up a indoor hydroponic grow in Fort Myers that can basically produce 38,000 plants a day on a continuous basis, 365 days a year. And that's for extremely high quality products. In the outdoor growing, we expect that to go completely mechanized, moving away from the Christmas trees that people are planting out there. And we see this going to 400,000 to 1 million plants per acre with a hybrid seed that is got 3 to 5, 6% CBD. We have now the processes to take that and pick that. With what we're working with the John Deere, we can take the tops, we will pull out the buds and the seed stuff. We will then automatically bale in the same machine, rolled, highly compacted bales for the fiber side. And then we basically process those through our processors. And we're talking a significantly higher level of tonnage coming off per acre than what we see in the Christmas tree style farming. Does that answer the question? I believe it does.
Yes, and there's a follow-up to that question. So your THC remediation would focus on the recreational cannabis market?
No, it is not at this point. It's actually focused on the industrial hemp market, on removing THC and separating it from industrial level products and nutraceutical products that might have that. And to be able to handle a hot crop for a farmer, we're hoping to become certified where a farmer can take a hot crop in without having to destroy it, and we can manage that for them.
Excellent. All right, and then we have a question from Shane. How do you prevent the profits from being competed away, assuming other folks see the same opportunity as you?
Well, I hope there's competition, because it's really hard to actually make a market without it. Having the experience we have as a team, we know, and having the information in our platform across the whole value chain, we have an extreme level of business intelligence. To give you an idea, we have 4,000 nutraceutical companies over in our market database, and all of those companies are buying some forms of CBD. We will compete, we'll outcompete, and we'll beat those people in those types of games. And if we have the highest level quality products, the best throughputs, and also the high, we're looking at achieving the highest margins also. So, we'll just compete. And I don't expect somebody, to really outcompete us, because we're sort of aggressive that way.
Very good, very good. We have a couple more questions.
Okay.
How are you able to pay such a high rate of return on the bond?
Oh, because of the high margins in the business itself. We have around, I don't have the financials in front of me, but I believe the financials will drive fairly high margins that in our financials, we cover the bond. We cover also accelerated amortization of all of our CapEx. Jason, do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about it. And I think one of the things to keep in mind, because I look at this, I come out of the investment space too. And when I sat down with the team, when I joined to look at how I would underwrite this as an investor, at this point, so our financials are max expense, min revenue. So for example, even on our high and low model, we're showing going to the market to buy seedlings, not doing our own. We're talking of, the first model, low model, is looking at 1,000 acres subscribed, getting to 2 during the year, and the other one's 3 getting to, or 2 getting to 3. That's assuming over a several year period. And if we're under NDA, we can talk a little bit more deeper into these numbers and get together with you. But right now we're at 4,000 acres right away, right? This model does not include several different revenue centers that we've talked about today. It does not include the sales to the seedling to the market. And it does not include the revenue center for the rent and throughput on the machinery and equipment yet. And that is because those numbers, to be perfectly honest, are so significant on the revenue side. If I was underwriting a deal on a bond or an equity investment, it would be very tough to get a serious investor to look at those revenue numbers and have a conversation. They're that significant. So the purpose of the way that this was done was that we could, bring it out here, show a reasonable underwrite that when I looked at, took it down by another 20%, as most of you that underwrite will. And then as we got together and started to get into the NDA and break the financials down, we can work with you on showing the contracts and stuff like that are in place and the subscriptions that are in place for the revenue numbers. And clearly the corresponding expense numbers that go with it. But it is a play to be reasonable in the marketplace to those that are looking for their investment.
Very good, very good. Yeah, and one of the questions was, can they set up a one-on-one call with, with the finance team? And I think you just answered it. That yes, we'll be sending out an email after this with kind of a review of this and how to schedule a one-on-one call with the team to get into more details. And anything else, Jason, that you wanted to add regarding the financials?
Just a couple of things to put out there for those that are looking. So clearly with something in this space, there's a couple developments we've had in the last couple of weeks that have been fantastic for us as we're getting close to finishing the lease up on our headquarters down here in Fort Myers. One of those is the local government's going to consider our seedling stuff research and development, which is fantastic. I have a C&I background for credit incentives going to the marketplace. So we're working closely with county, state, and federal on taking advantage of all the different credits and incentives that we can to the local areas. So excited about putting their HQ, the sizable HQ place, our HQ here, that they're actually going to do a lot of the groundwork for us on what we can get to quickly on R&D credits and stuff of that nature. The other thing that's been very successful and been well received, not just where we're at, but across, is the W-2 plan and how that's going to work, where farmers are going to be able to get, cover themselves with health insurance. The small farmers, if they're if they subscribe the acreage in, they're going to be able to be covered with health insurance, which is something now that's difficult for them to do on a smaller scale level. And then to further that, coverage options on that healthcare side because they're W-2 employees. We see a much bigger risk pool, and the insurance companies are very excited to quote that risk pool at this point.
That's great news, definitely. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more updates coming up. So anytime there's any updates we can share with the people that have attended the webinar, we'll be sure to send that out via email, phone call. We had some very, very good questions, so I appreciate everyone sending in your questions via the Q&A. And I think we are good to go.
Thank you,
So,
guys.
yep, thank you, everyone. So I'll be on the lookout for an email that I'll be sending out later on today. And we look forward to hearing from you again. Jason, thank you very much. Alan, thank you. And have a great day.
Thank you.